Great. Thank you so much, Selma, for that lovely introduction. And thanks again for this great opportunity to be able to work with you guys. And I'm really excited to be able to speak to all you girls today about design thinking and ideation. And hopefully you can apply some of those methods that I talk about in your projects. Raj, would you mind starting the slide share? So I'll dive right in. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about design thinking. Design thinking can be for enterprises like IBM, like really big companies, or it can be applied to the smallest projects as well. Like it can be even applied to like personal problems or personal issues that you want to think through. So it's a very global sort of approach that can be applied to anything. So today I wanted to talk about three things: a quick introduction to design thinking, a little bit about users and building empathy for the users. And then we'll dive into ideation activities where I can give you some ideas how you can start generating ideas. So let's dive right into it with an intro to design thinking. So what is design? You might have heard of several different types of definitions for design. And we'll dive in with an example. So let's say you're asked to design a bike. One way you can do this task, is by thinking about all the different parts that make up a bike. So you think of the wheels, the seat, the frame, the brakes, the handlebar, the pedals, and the chain, and you put them all in together and you have a bike. So that's how you design a bike. That's one way to do it. But when you think about it, when you think about designing a biker's experience, the problem sort of changes a little bit, because now you have to think about who is riding that bike. Who is the biker? Is it a girl in the city? Is it a guy on the mountains on a mountain trail? Or is it a little kid riding his bike or his first bike in a park? So that sort of changes the conversation a little bit, and it changes the problem. But you can also see that the end product, which is the bike, is very different in all three cases. So that's what designing an experience means, because you're thinking about more than just the bike. You're thinking about who's driving it, where they're doing it, and how they're feeling when they're doing it, and what are the other situations and contexts that you need to understand before you can design that bike. So that's one example of designing an experience. The next one is a real life example, actually. I'm assuming you guys are familiar with MRI machines where you do an MRI scan for your full body. The machine on the left-hand side is you can see it's like a simple, plain, very sterile looking machine, and it's kind of scary looking almost. So imagine a little child going in there and they're being asked to stay quiet and still for like whatever, 15, 20 seconds. It can be a little intimidating and scary. But when you look at the image on the right-hand side, there's like a whole experience around the MRI scan. There's like a submarine, you're underwater. It could be that you're going into a new adventure. So this could make the experience a little bit more sort of tolerable or more even enjoyable in some cases. So again, just pointing out the differences between designing a specific thing and then designing an experience for a specific type of user, in this case, a child. So what is design thinking? It's kind of about solving problems and creating solutions by looking at the people and their experience, like I said, but not necessarily at the thing. So it's not just important to just think about the bike itself and all the parts. You also have to go another step and think about who is using it and how they're using it and where they're using it. So that's the key distinction that design thinking allows us to think about. And design thinking is also about creating solutions that help people. So you're trying to help somebody specifically, a real person. And that means you have to understand that person. So we want to keep that in mind. And I'll come back to this a little bit later as well. So these are the core three principles of IBM Design Thinking: observe, reflect, and make. And they are in a loop, as you can see. So essentially what happens is you observe the situation, you observe the people, Then you reflect on what they need. You have collected data, you understand what they need, and then you think through it. You think through what you need to solve, and you think through the ideas. And then you start making, and then you go back. Then you reflect again, think, like, go speak to those users again and say, hey, did this thing solve your problem? Does it fix it? If not, then we'll observe you again, and then we'll try making this thing again. So that's why it's sort of an iterative loop, and you keep doing through these things, through these 3 steps over and over. And that's it's sort of like almost like an endless cycle, but you can always just go through it once as well, depending on your time constraints for your project as well. So this is just something to keep in mind as well. So these are like really high level steps. Again, this is something that you're probably going to follow in your projects as well. You first select the problem space. Then you will want to understand the users and their needs. Then you will generate ideas, and then eventually that will lead you to prototyping the solution.